While lying on your resume is generally frowned upon, what if there are scenarios that you not only could, but should? Now, to protect my smooth butt and brain, I am not recommending that you lie on your resume, but hypothetically, as a thought experiment, if you did, these are the places that you could. Now, this all came when I was writing another blueprint video, another 30-minute in-depth guide all about resume writing. And while I cook, there was a topic that came up over and over and over again: lying on your resume. It's a divisive topic, but I feel like it comes down to this. If you are applying to a job that is well within your wheelhouse, I don't see a huge problem with it if it can help you get your foot in the door. I would even go far as to say that it may even be important so long as it enables you to tell a good story about your skill set. Now, before you hammer me in the comment section, remember, companies will lie to you at every single chance they get. Does that make it okay to lie back? Maybe. Particularly if you're qualified, that wouldn't it be in the company's best interest to get you? And we'll get into the ethics later, but the first place that you could maybe lie is, the common saying is, if your GPA is below a certain point, sometimes it's 3.0, sometimes it's 3.2, then you leave it off your resume. Which sounds fine, but now there is a precedent where if it's left off your resume, people assume that it's bad. And when recruiters are looking at your resume, they spend an average of 7 seconds on it. And similar to dating apps, they are looking for every reason to say no. Humans have a negativity bias, and we tend to filter by looking for obvious red flags, one of which could be a low GPA. Now, this would be fine if GPA was a predictor of any type of success within the job, but it's not. It has been proven over and over again that GPA is not only a poor predictor of job performance, but also of intelligence. So basically, GPA predicts very little, but then we put so much weight into it. So here's my theory. Let's say that you have a 2.8 GPA, which could have happened for a multitude of reasons. Instead of not including it on your resume, what if you round it up to a 3.4? The gut reaction is negative, and usually people fall into one of three camps. The first is, they will catch you. It's illegal. For starters, it's not actually illegal. Unless you are applying for state and federal positions, it's just frowned upon. Similarly to overemployment. And the only way that they would really catch you is by asking for a transcript, which is exceedingly rare. Outside of entry-level positions or specialized fields like consulting or law, frankly, they won't ask. And the second group of critics is the people who work hard for the GPA. I worked hard for my GPA and now you're representing it falsely. Okay, good for you. What do you want, a cookie? Again, if GPA was a predictor of anything, then I would agree with you. But if you got a 2.8 GPA because you were caring for your sick family or building a more interesting side project, then why does it matter? And that's the third camp. And generally, I agree with you. Or what if you left it off your resume and this makes a company pull your transcript just to see if you are an underperformer? And then when they find out your real GPA, they use it to disqualify you. Now, this probably won't happen, but just hypothetically, just playing devil's advocate. Now, if you want to round up your GPA, the best way to do it is to add a second decimal point. Similar to charm pricing, where companies will round a $5 item down to $4.99 to make you think that it's cheaper. When you add the second decimal point, it makes it seem more legit. So instead of rounding from a 2.8 to a 3.4, make it into a 3.42 or a 3.39. And the next place we can tweak, one of the biggest red flags that recruiters will look for and will immediately screen you out is if, God forbid, you aren't working right now or had an employment gap in the past. It doesn't really matter what the time off was for. Your family, they could have all been dying, and recruiters don't care. They will screen you out for employment gaps. Again, recruiters are going through thousands of applications and they are looking for one reason to just say no to you and move on. Employment gaps are misunderstood as you being lazy or lacking commitment. Now, if the employment gap is less than 2 months, then it's fine. You can leave it. But if it's longer than that, good luck, Bubby. Time to get creative. First off, don't give excuses. The normal thinking is, oh, I can craft a story, a narrative, tell them that I was traveling the world, I was doing this, that, or the other thing, but you won't ever get to use the excuse if you don't even make it to the interview to start off with. And that's really the key with all of these resume lies, is that you are a qualified candidate who's getting screened out for a litany of dumbass reasons, and you are now just giving yourself the best chance possible to get to that interview. Now, what I would not recommend doing is using the old classic remove the month trick and just have years on your resume. Recruiters are wise to that and they know what you're doing. So what we really do is leave our last job as current or extend the timelines to make sure that the gap no longer exists within the past. By removing these gaps, we never have to admit that we got fired. Now we're just saying that we're looking for better opportunities. And we get to fend off stigmas that come with employment gaps. Basically, if we leave the gaps, companies will assume that we did something wrong. And in this case, being honest is costing you opportunities, whereas a small lie can get your foot in the door, which oftentimes is all you need. The next place you could lie. Now, this is the only one that I will own up to doing myself. If I read a job description that had all the same skills as my current job, but under a different title, then I would often tweak the title of my job to match the job description. If I read a job description and it had a skills required section, I would oftentimes add those skills with one caveat: if they're easy to learn. Basically, once you've applied to enough jobs, you will see the same skills over and over again, and you can research them and figure out that most of the time you can learn them within a couple days. So I'm not going to let that stand between me getting the job or getting disqualified. And most of the time, frankly, all of the skills that you will need on the job, you will learn once you're hired. And I can tell you with certainty, after going through school for computer science, everyone that I have talked to that is now a software developer told me that college didn't actually prepare them at all for the job that they ended up taking. But this is normal. College is just giving you a framework of how to learn skills, and then once you get on the job, that's where you'll actually learn the minute details of each skill that you will need. There's a certain time period where you're expected to get up to speed on the specific intricacies of that job. So for instance, I never learned Tableau, but I noticed that every single job description had it on it. So I put it on my resume, and sure enough, within the first week, I had to use it. So I asked a bunch of questions and then took a course and learned it. Now, if you have no basis for learning the skills, for instance, saying that you know C# even though you've never coded in your life before, then I would caution against it. But a lot of the times, there are skills that are synonyms of other ones that you can just learn pretty easily. And the same thing goes with job title. For instance, my main job title when I started was business analyst, and that single job title with the exact same job description goes by at least 30 different flavors. So if you need to tweak the job title or the skills to fit within the required job description, this is usually fine. And if you're really scared to do it, you could even say within an interview that my job title actually was this, but I was essentially playing the role of X, Y, or Z. Which leads us to our references. What about a background check? Won't they find out? Well, I feel like a lot of people think that a background check is this database where you put in your social security number and then everything about you is suddenly shown on the screen. That's not exactly how it works. What actually happens is the companies will usually use a third-party software, things like HireRight, Checker, or Sterling, to do the background check for them. And they will verify your identity starting with social security number, which will then say all the addresses that you lived at and maybe any aliases that you've used in the past. And then they'll do a criminal record search both on the county, state, and federal level just to make sure that you haven't committed any offenses. And sometimes they'll do a credit check, but most of the time, honestly, they won't. But then onto the things that actually matter, your employment history. Now, for starters, they will go to databases like the Work Number by Equifax, which shows your entire employment history, how long you were there for, and what companies you were at. But you can freeze that history pretty easily, so they will see nothing. It's actually quite easy, and I would recommend that you do it, particularly if you're going to lie on your resume or become overemployed. And then after that, they're going to find out your employment history by contacting your references. And you can use references such as this, which they will act as a recruiting company for you and play the role of any reference that you need to a T. Not sponsored, and I've never used it before. It's not illegal to fake your references unless you are using it to defraud or for government clearance or other shady practices. Check it out, there's a lot of articles on this website which will be pretty illuminating. Which leads me nicely to the ethics. But Wilson, lying is wrong, you're a piece of shit for taking jobs away from the honest man. And I could see why you would say that. But, oh, big juicy but, we need to stop believing that the ethics in business and personal life are the same because they're completely disparate and need to be treated as such. Look, it's a dog-eat-dog world. I don't need to tell you that. The game is rigged. Companies will lie to you constantly. So when the system is built on bullshit, playing by imaginary rules is just handicapping yourself unnecessarily. We act like it is morally virtuous to stand against lying on your resume, but I think it's morally virtuous to fight like hell for a job that you could do. And sometimes that means using your resume as a Trojan horse of sorts. Because generally, resumes aren't confessionals, they are marketing documents. And let me ask you this, do companies market themselves better than the reality? Every single time. Companies have lawyers, HR departments, and entire teams dedicated to protecting themselves, but all we have is a Word document. So maybe it's time to stop bringing a resume to a gunfight. Just remember, lie if you have to get in the door, but make for damn sure that you can back it up once you're inside. Because that's where the real work begins. Now go out and get that damn job. Thanks for watching.